I walked into the dealership that cold December morning with one goal in mind: to buy the perfect car for my daughter's Christmas gift. I had saved for months, skipping small comforts just to make this moment real. But the moment I stepped inside, the salesman exchanged quick glances and smirks, as if they had already decided who I was. Maybe it was my worn jacket or the fact that I came alone, but their laughter under their breath felt louder than anything in the room. Still, I stayed calm, determined not to let anyone ruin this surprise. I told them which car I wanted, the exact model my daughter had dreamed about all year. One salesman raised an eyebrow, another whispered something behind a clipboard, and suddenly the tone shifted from polite to mocking. They spoke as if I couldn't afford even the tires, let alone the whole car. But they didn't know the reason behind my silence. They didn't know how much this gift meant, or how many sacrifices had built up to this moment. And when I finally reached into my bag and placed the thick envelope on the desk, the room froze. But that was only the beginning. The salesman stared at the envelope like it didn't belong in his world. For a moment, no one spoke. I could almost hear the hum of the dealership lights as their confidence slowly slipped away. But before anything else could happen, he cleared his throat and asked where I had managed to get that kind of money. His tone wasn't mocking anymore, it was cautious, almost curious. I didn't answer. I just watched him, waiting, letting the silence work for me this time. What they didn't know was that this Christmas gift wasn't just about buying a car. It was about keeping a promise I made years ago, one my daughter never heard but one I carried every day. Ever since her mother passed, I had done everything I could to give her a sense of normal, even when life didn't feel normal at all. Every extra shift, every long night, every missed break brought me closer to this moment. But the dealership staff kept exchanging looks, and I could tell something about my presence bothered them. Maybe it was the cash. Maybe it was the way I didn't fit their idea of someone who buys a new car. And just when I thought they finally understood, another man stepped out from the back office, and his expressions said things were about to get even more complicated. The man from the back office walked toward us with slow, measured steps, the kind that made everyone straighten their posture. He scanned the scene, the open envelope, the stunned salesman, me standing there with my hands in my pockets. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in calculation, as if he was trying to figure out whether I was a problem or an opportunity. The room shifted again, this time filled with quiet tension. He asked me to step into his office to discuss the purchase, but something in his tone felt off. Still, I followed. Inside, the air felt heavier. He asked questions that had nothing to do with buying a car where I worked. Why I wanted that specific model, why I was paying in cash. It almost felt like he wasn't trying to sell me a car at all, but trying to uncover some hidden truth he thought I was hiding. Meanwhile, through the glass window, I saw the young salesman whispering to another worker, both glancing at the envelope like it carried some secret. Maybe they thought the money wasn't real. Maybe they thought I wasn't who I claimed to be. Or maybe they had their own reasons for wanting to slow things down. As the manager leaned forward, locking his eyes on mine, I could sense something bigger brewing beneath the surface, something none of them were saying out loud. And before I could respond, another unexpected voice echoed from the hallway, pulling all attention away from the desk. The voice from the hallway froze everyone in place. I turned slightly, and my heart skipped a beat. A group of men well-dressed, confident, and clearly not part of the regular dealership staff stepped in. They didn't smile. They didn't greet. They just looked at me, then at the envelope, and back at me again, like they were weighing a decision that could change everything in the room. The salesman behind the desk went pale, as if he'd just realized he had no control over what was happening. The manager leaned back, uneasy for the first time, and whispered something under his breath that I couldn't catch. The men from the hallway didn't say a word, yet their presence made it clear that this wasn't just about buying a car anymore. It was about proving something, about seeing if I could stand my ground. I felt a surge of determination. My daughter's face flashed in my mind, imagining the joy when she saw the car. But the tension in the room made me second-guess the simplicity of my plan. Every second stretched longer than the last dot. Suddenly, one of the men walked closer, stopping just short of the desk. He reached toward the envelope but not to take it. His fingers hovered, his eyes locked on mine, and the room held its breath. In that moment, I realized this Christmas gift had become far more than a car, it had become a test, and what happened next could change everything. The man's fingers hovered over the envelope for a long, tense moment. Then, just as I braced myself, he pulled back and smirked. "Interesting," he said softly, almost to himself, before turning to the manager. "You really thought this was going to be that simple, didn't you?" The manager swallowed hard, clearly caught off guard. The other salesmen glanced nervously at each other, sensing that things were spiraling out of control. I frowned, unsure of what he meant. This wasn't part of the plan. I had done everything right, saved every penny, prepared for every possible reaction. Or so I thought then. Unexpectedly, the man pulled out a small device from his pocket. A few clicks later, the screen lit up, displaying information about the car I had chosen. But it wasn't the price, the features, or the availability. It was something else entirely. Something that made my stomach twist. My name appeared on the screen, my purchase history, my recent transactions, as if someone had been watching me for weeks. "You're not the only one who wanted this car," he said slowly. his eyes narrowing. And now that you've stepped into this dealership, there are people who are very interested in seeing how far you'll go. The room went silent. The envelope of cash suddenly felt smaller in my hands, and I realized this. Christmas gift had become something far bigger and far more dangerous than I ever imagined. I took a deep breath, keeping my eyes locked on the man and the device in his hand. "I'm here for my daughter," I said firmly, my voice steady despite the tension curling in my chest. "This isn't about anyone else. It's about keeping a promise." For a moment, silence filled the room, thick enough to suffocate. Then, the man nodded slowly, almost reluctantly, and handed the device back to his pocket. "You've got guts," he said. "Most people would have backed down." He turned to the manager, who quickly recovered his composure. "Process the sale. All of it. Cash. Now." Relief washed over me, but I didn't let my guard down. The other men stepped back, their expressions unreadable, still observing every move. The salesman scrambled to finalize the paperwork, their earlier mockery replaced with hurried respect. I slid the envelope across the desk, watching as the cash exchanged hands. The car keys were finally handed to me, gleaming under the dealership lights. And for the first time that day, I allowed myself a small smile. My daughter would get the surprise of her life. Just as I turned to leave, the man from the hallway spoke one last time. "You think this ends here?" His eyes glinted with something I couldn't read. "This gift, it just put you on someone else's radar." I froze, realizing that while the immediate battle was won, the real story, the real challenges were only beginning. I stepped out of the dealership into the crisp winter air, the car keys warm in my hand. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. I had faced ridicule, suspicion, and a mystery that seemed far bigger than a simple car purchase, and I had won. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of triumph that wasn't just about money or power, but about keeping a promise to my daughter. Driving home, I couldn't stop imagining her face when she saw the car. Her laughter, the excitement, the disbelief, it was worth every tense moment. Every sideways glance, every silent judgment, I endured at the dealership. The road felt longer than usual, but with every mile, the anticipation grew stronger. When I pulled into the driveway, I paused, taking a moment to look at the car. It wasn't just a Christmas gift, it was proof of persistence, love, and courage. Life had thrown obstacles in my path, but standing there, I realized that determination and heart mattered far more than anyone's doubts. That day, I opened the door and called out to my daughter. Her eyes widened, and a huge smile spread across her face. In that moment, everything else faded. I knew this Christmas would be one she and I would never forget. And though challenges might still come, I also knew we could face them together.